Hi, I'm Tim. This is Watches Today, and welcome to our show. Today, we're talking watches, and we're talking about 4 cheap watches that are actually incredible that you'll want to buy. Plus, we share your wrist shots today on Watches Today. While we're warming up, do me a favor, check out my Instagram, Tim_Masso. 60-second reviews, and it's only the good stuff. Fun, exotic, rare, unusual, and always easy to digest in 60-second snippets. You can daisy chain my Instagram together and literally watch it for hours. So check Tim_Masso on Instagram. It is the official after party of Watches Today. All right, viewers shots number 1, instant gratification. Matt F. chills in Vancouver with his recently returned factory-serviced Breguet Tradition, looking good and nicely framed. Denis I. features, a first for us, his piece-unique Louis Monet Tourbillon. We have Jim M., who shares the best birthday present ever, his Breguet Heritage Tourbillon. Look at that guilloche. We have Philip D. of Park City, Utah, who shares his exceptional and rare Crayon Any Day with a fine brew. Any day is a good day for a brew. Jeff S. is up to the moment with his 2025 released IWC Ingenieur Perpetual Calendar, and Marcos V celebrates his 10th anniversary with his 1916 bought Breguet Classique 5157. Thank you for trusting our company. All right, what is a cheap watch in 2026? Let's first frame this a little bit. If your notion of a cheap watch is something that is like under $200, I've got to admit this show is not for you. I recommend Timex, Swatch, Casio. That's a different world. We're staying luxury. We're talking about things that can be serviced and maintained forever. These are still luxury class watches, but at a price point that seems like it's 15 years ago. That's the theme of today's show. And if it seems like watches are becoming historically unaffordable, you're not wrong. Here's a great example from my recent experience. I reviewed a 1956 retailed Patek Philippe 2526. This was the first automatic watch by Patek Philippe, so this is roughly equivalent to an automatic Calatrava in today's catalog. Well, the 1956 price of this was $500, which translates to about $6,080 in today's money. So let's just call it $6,100 in 2026 money. Keep in mind, this is an enamel dial, a gold case, and the movement is entirely hand-finished and Geneva seal, not mass-produced. The only problem is that the equivalent automatic Patek Calatrava today, the 5227J, which is a 1-for-1 match, all but the date and the Hunter case back, this is $47,000 and then a few $100s on top of that. All of which is to say this is more than inflation and more than our imagination. Watches are more expensive today than ever before. Let's take another example from esteemed history. So, hallowed antiquity holds that Henry Graves spent an absolute fortune to commission a piece unique, the world's most complicated watch, the Henry Graves Super Complication. Ordered in 1925 and not delivered until the early 1930s, the price for this one-off, which was handmade and developed from scratch, was $15,000 US. Now, adjust for inflation, and we're talking about $279,000 US in 2026 money. So that's a sum that doesn't even buy you 10% of the series-built Patek Philippe 6300 Grandmaster Chime, which has 20 functions, not 24. Again, that's over $3.5 million. If we just adjusted for inflation, it would be right around $300,000 by the Henry Graves standard. And keep in mind, again, that Henry Graves was a piece unique. These are made at least in a limited series. There's an industrial process for making this and tooling that can be used again and again. So, look at how watches are priced these days. Now let's talk about things that a lot of us are actually shopping and can buy. Omega's Sapphire Sandwich Moonwatch is now a $9,000 watch, while a no-date sub, that's right, no date whatsoever, basically the standard sub, is $10,050. We're into the 5-digit range for a no-date sub. And also, that would probably require a little bit of showroom floor diplomacy on top of the $10,050. Or consider this. We saw the perpetual calendar earlier, but let's roll back the complication. The IWC Ingenieur Automatic 40 is $12,900 now, and that's with a movement shared with a Baume & Mercier. Still a good watch. I love the way it looks. I love the way it feels. But at the end of the day, almost $13,000 for 3 hands and a date and a bracelet. We're in a different price class now. Think about that. I'm not saying that these aren't worth the prices asked, just that many watches once viewed as a point of entry to the watch hobby, maybe the first watch you buy on your way, they're now a few steps removed from that and maybe even a bit aspirational as a purchase or two beyond the first watch. So the landscape is changing and price is the variable. So today we roll back the years and discover 4 watches that still offer great prices and world-class quality and don't feel like a compromise in any way. You're not going to feel like you settled if you own one of these watches. None of the following will leave you feeling shorted or compromised. A few more viewer wrist shots before we do. Viewer wrist shots number 2. We got Jimmy Y. He is out of time with a watches and wheels shot for all time with his PAM 1678 and Doc Brown's DeLorean right there. Nicholas L. wears his beloved Rolex Submariner full gold, now his attained grail, and he's owned that since 2015. Congratulations. Steve B. rolls in his Tesla Model Y with Grand Seiko Spring Drive GMT. Wow, look at the lighting of that one. And Ben 10 impresses with an equally sharp photo of the rare and highly sought concentric dial Rolex Air King 34. Guys, Philip M. and his Rolex Explorer 2 are exploring, summiting on the Zugspitze Glacier in Bavaria, Germany. Very cool. That vehicle in the background is also very cool. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com or at the1916company.com. We will have a new extension soon. So 4 cheap watches to buy now. You know what's great about the current Speedmaster Professional Sapphire Sandwich? Let's talk the classic moon watch, but with the display case back. The best thing about the current one is that it looks exactly like the last Sapphire Sandwich. Switch between those 2 photos. Can you see the difference? Very few people will. And that's good, because this evergreen design trades on its consistency. The precise thing that makes it desirable is that it does not change, and it has that historical continuity, both in terms of aesthetics and its endorsement and use by real astronauts. So, here is an opportunity. That's right, same size, identical case, nearly the same bezel and dial. You'll find some differences in the bracelets, but not many. They're both well made. Remember this reference number if you're seeking this watch. That's it right there. I'm not going to read that out, but you can screenshot the image and go find one on Chrono24 or eBay or even our website. The last Sapphire Sandwich Speedy Pro before the current 3861 powered this machine. So the caliber 3861 appears to have one level of aesthetic specification, the one for the display case back and the one for the solid case back, and it's installed in both. There doesn't seem to be any special measures taken for the version you can see. Mechanically, it's true, the newer watch does have some theoretical advantages: silicon hairspring, master chronometer, coaxial escapement, but a well-regulated 1863 isn't going to give up much in terms of accuracy, nor will it lose much, maybe 2 hours in power reserve. Here's the thing. The 3861's visual spec isn't quite as handsome as the previous movement. And the LeMania, the more clearly, they're both LeMania based, but the more clearly LeMania based 1863, if we can take a look at that, particularly on the bevels and the pieces that are chronograph specific, the steel parts, the clutch, the recentering hammers, the yokes, this is a really good looking movement. And when you compare it side by side to the 3861, aesthetically, this is a clear winner, and you don't even need magnification to see the difference. It may be harder to see in these digital images, but the advantage is not subtle when you're holding the 2 watches in your hand. Pricing of the old watch can be found as low as the high $5,000 range. So take a look at this. Can we go full screen? Take a look at these watches that I found quickly on Chrono24. And I want to add that I used a US only filter, so these things can be apples to apples as I compare prices. But if you use an international filter, especially if you bring in some parts of Southern Europe and East Asia, you're going to find even cheaper options from reputable sellers with credibility. So consider this to be the low end of the US market, but by no means the cheapest way to get into these watches. And remember, all of these here are on bracelets, with the exception maybe of the one in the lower left-hand corner. On a strap, even less money, even in the United States. And you'll find one of the best versions of one of watchmaking's greatest historic model lines, again, for the high $5,000 range. Now, let's talk Jaeger-LeCoultre. Unarguably, the top name in alarm watches for a solid, roughly, I guess at this point, like 76 years. So that's a long time, but like a lot of once mid-priced luxury watches, the Memovox has gone up market to the point that not too long ago, we used to see holy trinity price points at this level of US dollar value. But not all brand names are verboten, because Tudor actually has our back in this case, and they have an incredible alarm watch option. No longer offered new, but many offered pre-owned and well built to go the distance. The Tudor is, of course, a Rolex-adjacent brand from the same corporate universe, a blue-chip name in its own right, and probably more so now than at any point in its history. And ready with Heritage Advisors. That one's the cognac dial, but here you can see the silver and the black. You're not giving up any spec. In fact, you're also getting the option of the full bracelet here for $5,000 or less. Keep that in mind. For under $5,000, you could have one of these, especially if it's on a strap. This is the price you would pay for an Oris or a Baume & Mercier or a Longines, but you're getting a power reserve. You're getting 150 meters water resistance. You're getting a titanium case for resonance and sound and volume with steel parts for high impact contact points. You're getting an alarm with an on-off feature, and it's not a ratty beat against the case type cricket sound. This is a properly loud, singing, sustained, beautifully toned alarm, a high quality alarm, and the watch is 150 meters water resistant, 41 millimeters in diameter. Could this do it all? Yes, it can. So here's a one and only watch that is also a complication from an elite brand for under $5,000, and it was and remains the most complicated Tudor ever made. Alarm watches may be the best complications overall. Whether you're at home or traveling, having a little reminder on your wrist can be handier than having 2 time zones. It can wake you up, and this one can wake you up even with earplugs in. Sometimes it's better to know when your plane is going to take off, when your meeting is about to resume, when the intermission is over, or when you need to skedaddle and make an appointment, and an alarm watch is perfect for that. With silver, black, and cognac dials, Tudor gives you choices and at reasonable money. Viewer wrist shots number 3. Let's take a look at Ryan L. and his platinum Vacheron Constantin, reference 48003. He actually owns this in platinum and in yellow gold. Ryan, you're the man, proving that 34 millimeters can be mighty. Bet you didn't know there was a Corne de Vache that's not a chronograph. Now you do. Dan R. and his Parmigiani Fleurier Tandem Metrograph Super Cruise through Georgia in his GMC. Killian G. of Karlsruhe, Germany, pauses for a moment with his Omega Seamaster Professional, the Diver 300 meter 36 in quartz, and this is on a tram in Karlsruhe, Germany. Guys, I love those shots. Watches and wheels of a different kind. John D. of Garden City, New York, drives Long Island with his 1987 root beer Rolex GMT Master in his Mercedes-Benz. And Darth Muppet reports from Kata Beach in Thailand, where he spotted this vintage Mercedes to go along with his Seiko. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com. Okay, 4 cheap watches to buy now. Let's keep this rolling. Zenith makes beautiful things, and I consider Zenith to be an elite brand. This is now the gateway to horlogerie. We are no longer talking about mass-produced entry-level watches here. This is on the same level of JLC, Piaget, Glasuta Original. It's a watch that has a lot of horological credibility from a small and great manufacturer. So, I believe an El Primero chronograph has a place in almost any collection. As much as I like the Moonwatch, and I do like the Moonwatch, I have to say an automatic winding column wheel El Primero high beat chronograph caliber has a degree of sophistication that the old Lamagna, no matter how modified, can't quite match. Add the legend of El Primero hero savior Charles Vermeau in the 1970s, the movement's famous firsts as the first automatic integrated high-beat chronograph in 1969, its longevity, endorsement by Rolex from 1988 to 99 in the Daytona, and the decades that it wasn't available in the United States, and there is immense horological folklore appeal right here. So, what does less than $5,000 buy you in El Primero terms? Well, first let me add that you can get an El Primero chronograph on a strap for under $3,000. I know, I searched and I found them. But let's set a $5,000 price point and expand our purview just a little bit here. What you can get is extravagant and exceptional. From US sellers only, again, apples to apples, we see chronographs with power reserves, annual calendars, triple calendars, moon phase, chronometer certified, boxes, papers, and full bracelet options. Again, all for under $5,000 from Zenith. You want an open dial? You got it. You want a 40mm case? You got it. There's a lot to love right here and real variety. There's even a vintage rainbow flyback chrono for under $4,000, and for $4,200 just below it, there's another one, and they're both on bracelets. Check out the El Primero Pacific in the upper left-hand corner. That's almost like a combination of a Movado museum watch with an El Primero from a time when the links between Movado and Zenith were very, very close. There is a ton of value to be had right here at prices that don't even seem right for this caliber of watch and grade of watchmaking. So raise your budget even $1,000 beyond $5,000, and you're going to find significantly more, including true 1970s and 80s vintage El Primero options. So now we're into the realm of getting a sub $6,000 vintage watch if you go into that space with Zenith. And at that point, you could build a whole collection theme around sub $6,000 Zenith watches. I know I would. Now I'm going to do something I didn't think I was going to do for this feature, and I certainly didn't plan on it. I thought these were all going to be used watches that are great value used. But I'm going to recommend you buy something at retail because of the exceptional warranty. And here is it. Oris and the ProPilot X. That's the Kermit dial, sure. But Oris and its ProPilot X Caliber 400 have earned this recommendation. I think you should buy this new. The standard version costs $4,800, and it is absolutely stacked. Here's what you get for $4,800. 39mm, full titanium construction, manufacturer movement, 5-day power reserve, and yeah, there is a display case back, 1200 Gauss anti-magnetic, 100-meter water resistance, rated at -3 + 5 seconds per 24-hour timing, tested in multiple positions, so this is rated as better than a chronometer by Oris. And that's from the factory, 10-year service interval, and then going big instead of going home, 10-year warranty. That's a big deal for me, and that's why I say this is worth buying new, to be the original owner of the 10-year warranty. And Oris rightly declaring that it makes no sense to pay somewhere between 10 and 20% of the price of a watch on a service. At this price point, a 10-year warranty adds a huge amount of value, and it's a big deal. Both men and women will find it fits really well. It's well sized. Check out my reviews. It's thin, it's light, it's short lug to lug. Selection offers a few different price points. Let's say you want something a little bit grander than $4,800. There's the Kermit, there's the laser dial. And yes, that colorful rainbow spectrum is a laser ablation effect. Really neat. And meaningful dial detail, even in the most basic versions, gives you nuance you might not expect, like a granular finish on the dial base and brushed finish on the hands. There's even the downright wacky if you want Kermit the Frog, and frankly, given Kermit's presence as a nickname elsewhere in the watch world, I like the fact that Oris just embraced this head-on rather than obliquely. The bracelet and the clasp have a rare quality of feeling more expensive than they are, and this is often a letdown for watches costing multiples more. For over $20,000, the Louis Vuitton tambour does not have a clasp as appealing as what you'll get on this Oris, and I like the tambour, but this is better in that respect. The Kermit with the bright green dial will cost you $5,100, but okay, have you seen the alternative full integrated bracelet sports watch in steel with the green dial? Check the prices, guys, and check yourself before you wreck yourself, Chrono24. I think the Kermit wins hands down. Okay, Viewers Chats number 4. Richard G is back, and he's back with his wife in an adventure in the canyons of Utah with his Casio A100. Bruno watches tonight with his recased Molnaya pocket watch to wristwatch conversion. We have Brendan N and his IWC Pilot's Watch chronograph bronze digging out of our latest Northeast United States snowstorm. Scott B celebrates the close of the 2026 Winter Olympics with his Omega Seamaster Aquaterra for Team USA. We got Jim from Queens, New York City, who navigates the borough with his Cadillac and his Parallel Turbine Evo, and Matt W. takes us home with his Mito Ocean Star and his Axe, a Kiesel DC600 electric guitar. Again, send your shots to mondaymailbag at the1916company.com. Thanks to you. Let me know in the comments below, what sub $5,000 watch do you think is a great buy, new or used these days? And if you've taken the plunge, what did you buy? I also want to thank Nick on the switcher, everyone who makes the best job in the world possible, both here and on the net. Thank you. Time out.